Hello and thank you for joining us. These are the current updates from across the globe. Our focus today is on the escalating tension in Gaza, where innocent civilians are tragically losing their lives. And in Indonesia, the top court has commenced hearings on appeals from two unsuccessful presidential candidates. And lastly, we delve into the ongoing investigation into the cargo ship incident that led to the collapse of Baltimore's Francis Scott Key Bridge. I'm Lisa Ong. This is The World on Bernama TV. We begin the world with this. The World Food Programme issued a dire warning on Tuesday, stating that Gaza City is facing an impending famine crisis. Matthew Hollingworth, WFP's Palestine country director, described the situation as desperate, with malnutrition rates skyrocketing, especially among children. Despite efforts, aid delivery remains insufficient, intensifying the suffering in Gaza's population. Urgent calls for increased humanitarian assistance and a ceasefire persists amid the ongoing conflict between Israel and Hamas.
There is nowhere else in the world where so many people face imminent famine. Here in Gaza City, we're at the epicenter of the crisis here in the Gaza Strip. Today I've met so many people who are angry and tired and despairing because their children go to sleep every night hungry. Their old people, their elderly, are fading away because of a lack of nutrition. They themselves are desperately seeking every day the aid that they need to survive. And we are simply not getting enough into Gaza City and the north of the Strip. We desperately need the conditions to get access every day to be flooding this area with food assistance if we're going to prevent famine, prevent further death, prevent wasting amongst children, prevent really the desperate situation that is already in place.
In Gaza's Rafah, an overnight Israeli airstrike on Tuesday claimed the lives of at least 4 Palestinians, flattening a residential building and trapping more than 10 people in rubble. Locals were seen desperately searching for survivors amidst the devastation. The strike came amidst escalating tensions and Israeli threats of a ground assault in the region. It adds to the toll to casualties in the ongoing Hamas-Israel conflict, which erupted on October 7th. Meanwhile, another Israeli airstrike on a paramedic center in Habaria, Lebanon, linked to a Sunni Muslim group, killed 7 yesterday. The strike triggered a retaliatory rocket attack from Lebanon, resulting in 1 casualty in northern Israel. These events unfolded amidst a day of clashes between Israel and Hezbollah along the border, heightening concerns of further escalation in the conflict. Now in Ukraine, Russia's aerial bombardment struck Kharkiv yesterday, marking the first attack since 2022, leaving at least 1 civilian dead and 16 wounded. The strike caused significant damages, hitting residential buildings and a surgical institute. Locals described the sudden chaos and injuries, while military experts and police assessed the aftermath. Russia's recent escalation in attacks on Ukraine has included missile barrages on Kyiv and strikes and on energy infrastructure amid ongoing battles along the Kharkiv front line. Amid Amid escalating tension, Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova expressed gratitude for support following last week's Moscow concert hall attack, while also accusing Ukraine and the West of involvement. The death toll from the attack rose to 140, with 80 still hospitalized, while 205 are receiving outpatient care. Despite ISIS claiming responsibility, Russia insists Ukraine and Western nations were behind the attack, a claim both deny. Over in China, they vehemently condemned the suicide bombing in Pakistan, which claimed the lives of 5 Chinese nationals. Chinese officials urged Pakistan to swiftly capture the perpetrators. The incident occurred in Shangla district within the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province, where many Chinese work on the China-Pakistan economic corridor. China reaffirms steadfast support for Pakistan's counter-terrorism efforts, emphasizing their enduring friendship. Still in China, a spokesperson from Chinese mainland warned that they closely monitored Taiwan military movements in Kinmen. Chen Binhua from the State Council Taiwan Affairs Office claims Taiwan's military provocations will not succeed. Chen highlighted Kinmen residents' desire for peace, emphasizing their preference for building bridges over firing guns. Before we take a short break, Bintao Keita, the special representative of the Secretary General in the Democratic Republic of the Congo DRC, addressed the worsening security situation in eastern DRC since December's elections. During a Security Council meeting, Keita noted the M23 rebel group's significant territorial gains is exacerbating the humanitarian crisis with unprecedented displacement.
The security situation in eastern DRC further deteriorated since the end of the elections, with the M23 marking significant advances and expanding its territory to unprecedented levels. This has culminated in an even more disastrous humanitarian situation, with internal displacement reaching unparalleled numbers.
Let's pause for a moment. After the break, we'll delve into French President Emmanuel Macron's stand against the EU-Mercosur trade deal due to environmental and health issues. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You are watching The World on Bernama TV. French President Emmanuel Macron voiced opposition to the proposed EU-Mercosur trade deal, citing environmental and health concerns during a forum in Sao Paulo. His visit to Brazil emphasized environmental collaboration, including a €1 billion investment in the Amazon protection. Macron launched a diesel-powered submarine with Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva. Additional discussions are scheduled to take place in Brasilia. Turning our attention to China, Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte emphasized the limited impact on overall relations while discussing measures to restrict China's access to semiconductor products during his visit to China. Addressing the security concerns and the Ukraine war, Rutte is urging for China to discreetly influence Russia.
What I can tell you is that when it is about our semicon sector and companies like ASML, that when we have to take measures, that they are never aimed at one country specific, that we always try to make sure that the impact is limited, is not impacting the supply chain, and therefore is not impacting, let's say, the overall economic relationship. What I particularly try to do today, starting with the students this morning, but also my conversations with the President and the Premier, is make clear that this is a direct security issue for us. Because if Russia will be successful in Ukraine, it will be a threat to the whole of Europe. It will not end with Ukraine, and it will make Russia more powerful, which is, by the way, also not in the interest of China.
Down in Indonesia, the top court began hearing appeals from two losing presidential candidates demanding a re-vote over alleged irregularities and fraud in the February 14 election. Defence Minister Prabowo Subianto won with 58.6% of the votes. Former Jakarta Governor Anies Baswedan and former Central Java Governor Ganjar Pranowo filed complaints alleging irregularities in the Valentine's Day elections. On April 22nd, a final decision will be made by 8 justices as Chief Justice Anwar Usman is unable to participate due to a conflict of interest. In Australia, authorities in the Northern Territory implemented a youth curfew in Alice Springs due to a recent surge in violent incidents. Children under 18 are banned from the Central Business District between 6 p.m. and 6 a.m.
And so you'll see a real increase in tempo and visibility engagement to drive down the crimes associated with youth activity. We saw, really violent behaviour yesterday associated with the death of an 18-year-old male on the 20th of March. That's led to family feuds, and that's what erupted in Alice Springs yesterday in a couple of locations at the Todd Tavern, when there was just reckless damage and violence demonstrated at the Todd Tavern. It led into another quite a serious fight where 150 people were involved armed with weapons. Our police responded to that and they were attacked. And we've seized 50 plus weapons. We've arrested 5 people so far, but the operation will be swift and we'll identify who's responsible, and they'll be delivered to the court where they can answer for their behaviours and deliver of justice.
In the USA, 4 people were killed and 5 others injured in a stabbing incident in northern Illinois yesterday. A suspect is currently in custody and is currently being questioned by the authorities. Rockford Police Chief Carla Redd confirmed that one victim remains in a critical condition. The city of Rockford, located 90 miles northwest of Chicago, is mourning the tragedy as Redd extends sympathies to affected families.
This afternoon, a call was received at our dispatch center.
In Germany, a devastating incident unfolded on the A9 highway as a Flixbus en route from Berlin to Zurich veered off near Leipzig. The crash resulted in at least 5 fatalities and over 20 injuries. Emergency services rushed to the scene while the authorities are investigating the cause. The A9, crucial for Berlin-Munich travel, is closed for recovery efforts. Flixbus is currently cooperating with the authorities to ascertain the cause of the tragic accident. In China, a departure ceremony for Ankai's batch export of pure electric double-decker sightseeing buses to France was held on Tuesday in Hefei. This marks the 3rd such exports. 20 buses, each 12 meters long, will operate in Paris, offering green and comfortable travel experiences. With a semi-open upper floor design and an 8-language voice synchronization system, including English, French, Italian and Spanish, it caters to tourists worldwide. Before we pause briefly, Mohan Port, situated in the China-Laos border in Yunnan province, has experienced a remarkable uptick in outbound tours since March. With over 600 groups and 9,100 passengers daily, it marks a significant surge compared to the previous year. It welcomed over 50 tour groups and 900 individuals in a single day on Tuesday, setting a new record high since the resumption of borders tours last September. The total number of passengers at Mohan Border Port this year has doubled handled, exceeding 640,000 with over 140,000 vehicles handled, marking a 30% year-on-year increase. I'm off to a break. We'll be back with more global updates. Stick around for the full scope. Welcome back to The World. Investigators are currently gathering evidence from the cargo ship responsible for the collapse of Baltimore's Francis Scott Key Bridge. 2 bodies have been recovered and the victims are presumed deceased. Hailing from Mexico, Guatemala, Honduras and El Salvador, their identities underscore the tragedy's reach.
Made a tragic finding. Shortly before 10 a.m., the Maryland State Police, along with the underwater recovery teams, supported by state, local, and federal partners, made a tragic finding. Shortly before 10 a.m., divers located a red pickup truck submerged in approximately 25 feet of water in the area of the middle span of the bridge. Divers recovered two victims of this tragedy trapped within the vehicle. The victims were identified as Alejandro Hernandez Fuentes, 35 years old, of Baltimore, and Dorlian Ranial Castillo Cabrera, 26 years old, of Dundalk.
In a significant operation, the Colombian Navy intercepted a speedboat in the Caribbean waters near San Andres Island, seizing over 3 tons of cocaine valued at $113 million, making it the largest haul in 2024. The crew, comprising 3 Colombians, 1 Honduran and 1 Venezuelan, was detained. Colombia shifts its anti-narcotic strategy, focusing on high-profile traffickers while supporting small farmers with legal alternatives, aiming to promote substitute crops for profitability. Across the globe in Ecuador, a unified effort, approximately 1,600 police and military personnel launched a major raid on a troubled neighborhood in Guayaquil, notorious for its ties to drug trafficking, kidnapping and extortion. President Daniel Noboa was personally involved in the operation. The raid resulted in 17 arrests and the seizure of 52 kilos of drugs along with firearms. The area, once a low-income housing project, has become a stronghold for criminal groups, contributing to Guayaquil's reputation as one of Ecuador's most dangerous cities. Heavy rains and powerful winds wreaked havoc in Lisbon and its outskirts yesterday, causing localized flooding and traffic chaos. In Algiers, water cascaded down building stairwells and overflowed from gutters. Flash floods disrupted traffic, causing traffic disruptions across the city. The Lisbon Fire Department responded to 160 incidents, grappling with the aftermath of the severe weather conditions. Now, in Myanmar, amidst recent battlefield losses tarnishing their once formidable reputation, Myanmar's military held their annual parade in Naypyidaw. The civilians adorned regiments with garlands as they marched, while the military, which seized power in February 2021, faces mounting armed resistance. Young people, aided by ethnic guerrillas, have inflicted significant losses on the army in various regions. Senior General Min Aung Hlaing has urged against supporting resistance, branding them as extremist forces during the parade commemorating Armed Forces Day. In Algeria, inflation has soared to 9.53%, rendering essential goods excessively expensive, notably during Ramadan. And markets like Reda Hauhau in downtown Algiers, prices are skyrocketing, straining citizens financially despite recent oil price rebounds. Amidst shortages, vendors resort to importing goods, driving costs even higher. To ease the burden, the government has introduced subsidized markets, but analysts attribute the inflation to rising raw material prices, particularly in agriculture. And that brings us to the end of our global exploration for now. Until next time, I'm Melissa Ong. This has been The World on Bernama TV. Thanks for watching.